Well, just for a couple of data points for last year, digital did 3x growth last year, and then print did 15%. So, I think, and I think print's up better than it's been in a generation.
We're up drastically in both.
Yeah.
If you walk into a comic shop on a given Wednesday, chances are there's more new product on the shelf than there was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago before that.
So this is a great time to be in comics. I mean, there's, people are interested, at Comixology, we just opened up a submission portal called Comixology Submit, where you can just upload your PDF, we approve it or not approve it. Most of the time we'll approve it, but if it's really bad, it's not going to get approved. It's just like people with Crayola, no one wants to see that, sorry. And then it's available on their platform. So, there's so many avenues for creators now and getting your comics and, all the comic companies are doing a lot of outreach for the movies and for the audience there. And, I think there's always there's always more to be done.
Well, one way I think is I think you need to, this sounds very cynical, but you need to start them young. Because I grew up reading comics. I think we all grew up reading comics. And
there's more kids comics today than there's been in 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that if you grow up sort of reading the language of comics, we've all talked to people, our friends that we think would love a particular comic, and they're just like, I can't read this, because comics can do something that no other art form can actually do. There's a pacing to them that is completely unique, except like storyboards, you know what I mean? But if you don't grow up reading that language, it's hard to convert later in life, So that's why Adventure Time at Boom, My Little Pony, all these sorts of things. So
all available through Comixology digitally.
Sorry.
Good marketing panel?
Yeah.
Sorry. And you see retailers themselves doing a whole lot of marketing trying to get to this exact same question these days, trying to make their shops welcoming places. For us, I can't speak to everyone else on the panel, but Free Comic Book Day remains an enormous opportunity that we try and capitalize on. Each year, Valiant this year is going to have, not only is going to have 2 Free Comic Book Day books, one promoting classic stuff, one promoting our new books. We're going to put out all of our #1 issues for $1. It's the best time of the year to try and get your book into as many hands as possible.
Yeah, just going off what Hunter said, retailers work with their local movie theaters all the time to do cross promotion to try and get the movie-going audience to read the source material. And they give out free books or free single-issue comics just to make sure they know that there's a correlation, there's a relationship between what they're watching on screen and the comic books. I can't speak to what all the other publishers do. Archaea has never had a book that's been turned into something more than a graphic novel. There are a few books in development, so I can't speak to what Marvel and DC is doing on a bigger level. I do remember seeing when I was seeing the Green Lantern, when I watched the Green Lantern movie, they did.
There was an ad.
There was an ad.
Yep.
I think in the credits for the Green Lantern comics.
There are codes in the Avengers DVD. For redeeming digital comics. I think that the comic fans in general, are so used to not having a medium or industry that's really killing it, and so I see online it's just like, oh man, we have to do more. And yeah, we do have to do more, but really, I'm really bullish on what, as an industry, we've done in the last couple of years to really activate the fan base, grow the medium, grow the audience. I'm pretty positive. I think the best is yet to come. Yes, sir.
You mentioned before that one thing that sort of makes comics marketing different was you know your audience is sort of there. And I was wondering if there's anything else that you could speak to that makes comics marketing or comics PR different than marketing for Clorox or Chrysler.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm just kidding.
In terms of channels or the type of that, online, offline.
What?
Earned media.
Honestly, I think first of all, at least, as Dirk pointed out, speaking for all of us, we all love what we do. And not just loving, marketing. I remember watching, of course, this is interesting to anyone who's ever worked in marketing or wanted to. You watch a series like Mad Men, and the way that, you know, that's such a different thing where it's sort of like trying to tap into who loves Clorox or who wants Chrysler. It's like, I know exactly who the fucking person that wants comics is. Like, they're me, or some version of me. But I think, you know, again, it does definitely come from knowing your audience because you are your audience. Now, granted, you know, I'm not the teenage female who may be a huge Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, but I can understand the themes in the book that would appeal to them because I understand comics and I can understand what kind of person that person might be. So I think it really, you have to believe in what you're selling, frankly. And, you know, honestly, if I didn't believe that to be true, I'd probably be selling Clorox or something, but I'm not. You know, I'm here because, you know, I love this medium and I believe in this medium, and so therefore I feel like I can be one of the best advocates for it.
Yeah, I think honestly, I have to be in comics marketing because I don't think I could probably do it for anything else, you know. And well, I always found that, and this kind of speaks to the movie thing, but there's a massive audience, you know, potential audience for these things that maybe fans in general, and just you know, what you want to do is find the people that should already be into this stuff and just don't know it yet. You know, I mean, it's one thing because you cannot force someone to enjoy comics. They're either going to love it or not, and you can't, you know. And so that's kind of it's a fun task actually to figure out different ways to. Because I don't feel like
I love forcing people to enjoy comics.
Yes, you're gonna love it.
The other way it's different from a traditional agency or corporate model is you're not representing a client who's paying you to do this. You're often trying to promote the work of writers and artists who have spent a lot of their time and a lot of effort trying to do the best thing possible. And especially if you're working on a creator-owned title, you really feel an obligation to live up to their work and not let those people down.
Yeah, I can tell by your question that you actually have some marketing background because you're using jargon like earned media and channels and stuff like that. And I think that's great. I think usually in this panel we try to keep it fairly light and stuff. But if you want to talk afterwards, I'd be happy to talk to you more about the stuff you're interested in. I think, you know, the fact that you're at this panel and you do know what earned media is, and you are talking about channels, I think is great. And I hope you, I look forward to talking to you afterwards.
I think that one of the biggest challenges I always face at Archaea is that a lot of the books that we publish are written and illustrated by unknown creators, people who are first timers and that no one's ever heard of. So one of the strategies that I use is I interview the writer and the artist, or sometimes it's the same person, the writer artist, and I get to know them. I create a cheat sheet or a tip sheet, so to speak. I jot down any interesting facts about the creator, what they used to do, what they do for a living, what their first work was. Anything that I find would be of any interest to a journalist. A lot of times when you're pitching a book to a journalist who's never heard of this creator, you want to make their job easier, as Chip was saying earlier, and as Hunter was saying, you want to make it easier for them to want to cover your book. So I usually give them a document. Here are some 10 interesting facts about this particular creator or about this particular project. And oftentimes I get a lot of good hits by that. I'm like, oh, well, you know what? There's a good human interest angle here. I would definitely love to talk to your creator. And you know, there are all these little tips and tricks that you can use to try and get coverage or exposure for the books that you're trying to pimp out.
And actually, to that point, it's funny that you would say that, having a journalism degree, I think, is probably the best asset you have coming into marketing and PR, because one of the things I've found in spending so much time pitching journalists and pitching writers and editors is understanding what the story is before you call them. Like basically saying, okay, well, like for instance, I recently, I pitched a Jewish publication on a Steve Niles horror story about Gollum, which, is kind of a bizarre move, but they're writing a story on it because we talked about the history of the Gollum and how much research that Steve put into like really understanding how to really kind of make the story work, in historically accurate way, culturally accurate way. But knowing that going into it and saying, okay, well, I know what the angle is here. How do I get that to come across? And how do I sort of spoon feed them the story? And conversely, another thing I would say to that point is once you cultivate relationships with people, it's one thing to, Chip brought up, there's never, a bad review is never a problem. However, understanding when something is just not for the person you're talking to is going to gain you lots of long-term credibility. And they're gonna pick up the phone when you call, as opposed to being like, oh great, Jeremy's calling again. He's gonna try and tell me about some Gollum story, and it's knowing hey, this is something that could work for you, and here's how, and not, just calling with every book that you might be pushing.
Another tip that I'd like to offer you is our free weekly newspapers are often great outlets for you to tap. I usually find out where a certain creator lives. For instance, if someone's from Seattle, I would reach out to the local Seattle. There's 2 Seattle weeklies, The Stranger and Seattle Weekly. That I'd like to reach out and say, hey, I got a guy who's local to you. It'd be great. Any reason you think that they could use to want to cover the person or the project, use that to your advantage.